whenever I was speaking with my first guy that interviewed me, and he actually had asked me, how many books have I read within the past year? I don't read. Nah, I'm kidding. I wish I was a better reader. Honestly, after studying for the MCAT and working full time and taking 2 classes while doing all of that, I ain't have time to read. What's up, YouTube? I'm back at you with another video once again. Got my little twist going and everything. So anyways, today this video is going to be about my first virtual interview. Of course, you know, with everything going on, I can't like go to the campus and have a group interview and go over the campus and everything like that. So we had to settle for a virtual interview through Zoom. And so I'm going to tell you guys about it. So I had a virtual interview to VCOM. VCOM stands for Edward Via College of Osteopathic Medicine. They have 4 campuses, and the main campus is at Virginia Tech. The other campuses are in Spartanburg, North Carolina, Spartanburg, South Carolina, Louisiana, and where's the other one? Auburn, I believe. So I don't really know why they have like different campuses for one school. But I know a couple of osteopathic medical schools that actually do have 2 campuses and 3 campuses in different areas. So, yeah, I interviewed for the campus, the Carolinas campus, which is the campus in Spartanburg. I live in Charlotte, so location was just like easier for me as far as, I guess, traveling. I wouldn't have minded to go, you know, to Louisiana or Auburn or anywhere far, considering that I went to UNC Charlotte for my undergrad, and I mean, I'm from Charlotte, so I could have afforded to like go away. So anywho, all schools are different in regards to their secondary applications and their interviews. This school in particular moved pretty fast for me. I applied late to medical school and I heard back very fast in regards to my secondary application and my interview. So I applied, and within less than 2 weeks, I heard back from them. They wanted to extend a secondary application to me. Secondary applications are not afforded to everyone. This particular school was invite only. Some people say that, you know, you're afforded a secondary application. Everyone gets a secondary application in order to see who you really are, but that's not true. Some schools are only invite. This secondary application for VCOM involved 3 different essays. Once I finished that, it took me about a week to hear back from them to invite me for an interview. It all happened pretty quickly. I interviewed on Tuesday, I believe, March 24th. So a couple days before my interview, I got an email from a member of the admissions committee, and she sent me an itinerary of how the interview would start, what we would be going over, how many interviews I would have, and the time frame within everything. So my interview started at 9:15. And I interviewed with 8 other potential medical school students. In the beginning, we went over the COMLEX scores and how they stood amongst the national average. We went over the USMLE. For those of you who don't know, the COMLEX is the College of Osteopathic Medicine licensing exam. It's the exam that you have to pass in order to become a doctor. And the USMLE is the United States Medical Licensing Exam, and that's what MDs normally take. But DOs can take both tests. It just depends on like your budget and I guess your residency, I think. Don't quote me on that. We went over the national averages, the campus, the extracurricular activities, the curriculum for the 4 years that will be in med school, the mission outreach organizations, the different opportunities that will allow us to help internationally. I had 3 interviews for VCOM. 2 of my interviewers were faculty members, and one of my interviewers was from the admissions committee. An important tip from a good friend of mine was that if they give you any type of information about somebody that you're interviewing with, make sure to do research about them and look up what they've done, and be sure to ask questions in regards to their experiences, so it shows that you have done your research and you have taken the time out to really invest in who you're talking to. So my first interview was with a doctor who was an assistant professor in anatomy. Whenever I was doing my research, I saw that he was currently doing research on the brachiocephalic trunk and the left common carotid artery. So I made sure to ask him questions about his current research project. I asked, does the research ever really end? What does he enjoy about it? What are the pros and cons about it? And what research opportunities do they offer at VCOM? So that was a great way to connect and communicate with the interviewer that I only really had 25 to 30 minutes to chat with. My second interviewer was also an assistant professor. Whenever I was doing research, I saw that she had worked in internal medicine and she worked in the hospital and she also worked clinically. I made sure to ask her, did she prefer one over the other? What were her takeaways about working at the hospital? And what takeaways can I get from her experience? So that was also a good conversation. My third interviewer, she was actually an administrative staff, so I couldn't really find her information online, but we actually had a great conversation and I felt like we connected just on a personal level. All the interviews went well. Interview questions. So you can never really be prepared for interview questions. I remember getting some advice from a doctor that I know, and she had just said it's kind of like just a job interview. They may ask you some of the same questions as far as what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what do you like to do. However, I actually got asked a lot of different questions that I couldn't really prepare for. You kind of just have to take it slow and take a deep breath and answer the question to the best of your ability. So these are some examples. I remember whenever I was speaking with my first guy that interviewed me, and he actually had asked me, how many books have I read within the past year? I don't read. Nah, I'm kidding. I wish I was a better reader. Honestly, after studying for the MCAT and working full time and taking 2 classes while doing all of that, I didn't have time to read. So what I did was I actually included the Kaplan books. Let me pull one out. So what I did was I actually included the Kaplan books that I read for the MCAT. Because as you can see, I read through this. I got bookmarks and all. So I included that as the amount of books that I've read, so it didn't seem like I would be like a lousy candidate. I do like to read. It's just, with everything going on at the time, it was just too much. Second question, how did I deal with the passing of my father? So this was actually very personal, obviously. And the reason why she knew that was because in my secondary application, one of the prompts wanted me to explain the biggest challenge in my life thus far and how I came out on top. So in my prompt, I talked about how I deal with grief and how I choose to overcome the challenges that grief comes with every single day. I more so talked about how my dad dealt with the things that he was going through in his life and how it was an inspiration to me and how I should move throughout my life. And it was actually very inspirational and motivational. I got a lot of questions about my experience as a pharmacy tech, specifically an IV pharmacy tech in the hospital. So I've worked in 3 different realms of pharmacy all in the course of 1 year. And so a lot of people get confused because they think that since I work with IVs, I'm a phlebotomist, but I always have to explain, like, I create the bags that get hung upside down so that way that medication can flow throughout their veins. And so this was a very interesting topic, and it clearly was for one of my interviewers because we had a conversation about the experience. So yeah, they're definitely going to bring up your experiences, and it's good to have a lot of them to choose from. So a big subject that a lot of my interviewers wanted to ask me about involved my track and field career. So I ran track at UNC Charlotte, and my career started as a freshman when I was a walk-on, and I ended my career with my name in the record books, breaking conference records, facility records, school records, and I also received a nice scholarship that helped out with finances. And that was really the main thing that I talked about in my personal statement. And I'm not going to lie to you, it was fire. It was good. It sounded like a storybook, and it really touched on my ambition and my diligence in regards to just my character. So a lot of my interviewers were motivated by my experience, and again, it just felt like a conversation. They had so many questions to ask. They were so inspired by it. I was kind of just speaking on my experience and how I came out on top. Okay, so the last couple questions that I got asked. How would my friends describe me? I thought this was kind of lighthearted and funny because one of my friends actually calls me Sunshine because of my smile. I thought that was cute because I kind of inputted that information, and it went perfectly with the conversation. Of course, if you're preparing for interviews, a common question that they will ask you is, what do you bring to that specific campus that you applied to? And you want to just talk about your character and something unique about you that you love. Another experience question. I got asked about my experience as a personal trainer. In my primary application, I spoke about my experience as a personal trainer, and I talked about how I helped one of my clients who was pre-diabetic get off of the pre-diabetic list within a matter of a couple months. And I also wrote about how I helped one of my clients lose 20 pounds over the summer. So I believe that description really jumped out to my interviewers. And that makes all the difference between writing your descriptions in a narrative form, picking out the important aspects of your experience, and just kind of writing a bullet point list of your tasks and daily description. After all of my interviews, we wrapped it up, came back together, and we finished off with the last Q&A with a couple medical students. And that was the end of it. That was it. Although I didn't really get a chance to tour the campus and meet people face to face, I still felt like I got a good idea of how the school would be like and the people that I'd be around. That wraps it up for this video. I just wanted to give you guys insight on my virtual experience, and I'll catch up with you later.